Senator Cormier. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Senators, Pericles, an ancient Greek politician born around 495 BC, said, and I quote, "All the good things of this world flow into the city because of the greatness of the city." End of quote. This statesman undoubtedly gave the Greek capital Athens its most brilliant period. Through his support of the arts, architecture, philosophy, and the establishment of democracy, he possessed a vision that we can doubtless learn from today. It is with this thought in mind that I rise to speak to Senator Paula Simon's inquiry, drawing the attention of this chamber to the challenges and opportunities facing Canadian municipalities and the importance of understanding and redefining the relationship between municipalities and the federal government. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are located on the unceded territories of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation, where many municipalities were born. Colleagues, we are all aware that Canadian municipalities are currently facing many economic, social, and cultural challenges. These issues are particularly relevant to me in terms of human rights. Growing poverty, homelessness in some of our cities, including here in Ottawa, the lack of affordable housing, violence against marginalized communities, gays and women, think of the women of the Polytechnique, the need for public transit, the impact of climate change on our lives. These are all issues that require concrete action to strengthen the capacity of cities to do their utmost to ensure that Canadians can thrive in health and safety.
Although Canada, Ottawa may be our workplace where we collectively serve the best interest of all Canadians, our communities from coast to coast to coast play a pivotal role in our lives, whether it be in my hometown of Caraquet in New Brunswick, Kelowna in British Columbia, or Iqaluit in Nunavut. Our municipalities help shape our cultural and linguistic identities. This is the place we call home, the place where we live, work, celebrate, raise our children, love, and imagine our future. As the more proximate level of government to citizens, municipalities are also the place where we can express our grievances on a myriad of issues, such as public transit, water and sewer services, animal control, road maintenance, and waste management. It is simply appalling, colleagues, that these democratic bodies are faced with so many challenges today.
The first of these challenges is undoubtedly the unequal status of municipalities in relation to the provinces, a status enshrined in the Canadian Constitution and reaffirmed by the courts. The term creature of the provinces, commonly associated with municipalities, stems from the division of legislative powers under Section 92.8 of the Constitution Act 1867, which provides that municipalities are under the authority of the provincial legislatures. Therefore, it is provincial legislation that creates these entities by delimiting their power to intervene. Legally, the provinces have the ability to change the structure and governance of municipalities, whether that be the composition of a municipal council or even the powers of a mayor. While this lack of political autonomy is an impediment to their development, it is unfortunately not the only challenge facing Canadian municipalities. They also have to deal with limited sources of revenue, largely dependent on earnings from property taxes. This situation has a disproportionate impact on the provision of public services. From this point of view, many municipalities face challenges in the delivery of cultural and linguistic services. It is therefore undeniable that the federal government's support in these matters is crucial and expected. I would like to draw your attention today to the essential role that Canadian municipalities play with regard to official languages and the arts and culture sector by giving a few examples from my province of New Brunswick and by highlighting how the federal government can and must be a true partner with them. Our municipalities have a key role in protecting and promoting our two official languages. Some provincial and territorial language regimes provide for specific official language obligations for municipal institutions. For example, in New Brunswick, If the official language minority population of a municipality is at least 20% of its total population, the Provincial Official Languages Act requires the adoption and publication of municipal bylaws, including the provision of services and communications prescribed by regulation in both official languages. Don Arnold, Mayor of the City of Moncton, New Brunswick, a bilingual city, stated the following about the impact of official languages on the economic, social, and cultural development of her city, and I quote, "Moncton relies heavily on respect for its two linguistic communities, and our bilingual status is a source of great pride. Moncton's economy thrives, in large part, because of the presence of a bilingual workforce, to support the ability of businesses to provide exceptional service to their customers, generate greater economic activity, and foster job creation." She goes on to say,
"Infrastructure development as schools, post-secondary institutions, hospitals, and more are built to accommodate this unique population. A market segment for products and services in French is also created, such as cultural activities, restaurants, services like translation, customer service, banking, etc., thus allowing a community to fully prosper," end of quote. Le gouvernement fédéral.
The federal government also contributes to the prosperity of Canadian municipalities through the Federal Official Languages Act, which is quasi-constitutional in nature. Part 7 of this Act is vital to ensure the sustainability and survival of official language minority communities, which are an integral part of our country's municipalities. It includes an explicit commitment by the federal government to enhance the vitality of the English and French linguistic minority communities and support their development. In New Brunswick, for example, the implementation of this commitment resulted in a federal government investment of $776,000 in 2018 to support a governance project to improve the offer of services in French through municipal grouping projects. This is a positive measure that values the contribution of municipalities to the development, growth, and influence of the Canadian Francophonie. It should be noted, colleagues, that the current modernization of local governance in New Brunswick is the most important reform undertaken in that province since the Equal Opportunity Program adopted in the 1960s under the government of Acadian Premier Louis-G. Robichaud. Before the current reform, approximately one-third of New Brunswick's population did not live in a municipality, but rather in local service districts administered by the Department of the Environment and Local Government, a structure that allowed for the administration and delivery of local services to the unincorporated areas of the province, which were not, since they weren't incorporated, they had neither mayors nor councillors. This long-awaited reform, which aspires to a higher democratic ideal, ensures a major transformation of the governance of my province through a reduction in the number of local entities and a Francization of the names of some entities, thus reaffirming the importance of the linguistic and cultural heritage of our communities. This initiative explicitly recognizes the contribution of municipalities to the linguistic, cultural, political, and economic development and vitality of our province and our Acadian regions. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Government of New Brunswick for undertaking this important reform, and I offer my most sincere congratulations to the members of the municipal councils of these new entities who were quite recently elected.
The Official Languages Act, I will highlight that Part 7 of this Act also provides that Canadian Heritage can take measures to, and I quote, "encourage and assist provincial governments to support the development of English and French linguistic minority communities generally, and in particular to offer provincial and municipal services in both English and French," end of quote. The implementation of this provision has notably resulted in the signing of agreements with provincial governments to help municipalities provide services and communications in both official languages, such as the translation of municipal bylaws. Notwithstanding Part 7, under Part 4 of the Act, members of the public have a right to receive services from federal institutions in the official language of their choice, notably if there is significant demand for these services in that language or if the nature of the service justifies it. As we all know, colleagues, the federal government is in the process of modernizing the Official Languages Act to better attain substantive equality between Canada's official languages through Bill C-13, which includes some provisions that touch directly or indirectly the vitality of municipalities. Le projet de loi
Bill C-13 clarifies the nature of the obligation of federal institutions, including federal departments, to take positive measures to implement certain federal government commitments, including the commitment to enhance the vitality of English and French linguistic minorities in certain strategic sectors.
Colleagues, taking positive measures to support sectors that are essential to enhancing the vitality of English and French linguistic minority communities equally helps to make municipalities more vibrant and robust. In other words, the development of official language minority communities is as much a catalyst for growth for Canadian municipalities, whether it be economically, socially, culturally, or politically. Nos municipalités canadiennes.
Our Canadian municipalities, particularly in the regions, are also facing a major challenge with respect to the demographic decline of their population. Immigration is a key factor in dealing with this problem, which is only getting worse every year. Bill C-13 provides for the adoption of a Francophone immigration policy. This provision, which will undoubtedly help to counter the demographic decline, will likely have an impact on the operations of municipalities, including Francophone associations, whether at the stage of welcoming, integrating, or retaining immigrants. Beyond official languages, it is undeniable that the arts, culture, and cultural industries are true vectors for the development, growth, and influence of our Canadian municipalities, and that the federal government also has an important role to play in this area. Before I came to the Senate, I had the privilege of directing the États généraux des arts et de la culture dans la Société acadienne du Nouveau-Brunswick, a major societal project aimed at the cultural development of the territories of Acadian society in that province. A development approach in which all sectors of society were involved in developing and implementing initiatives to integrate culture, the arts, and heritage into their territory. The goal of this large-scale project, carried out by the Association canadienne des artistes professionnels du Nouveau-Brunswick and funded by the federal and provincial governments, was to develop a comprehensive strategy for the integration of arts and culture in this society. In other words, to develop a national cultural policy for the Acadian people. Today, the implementation of this global strategy is underway and has brought about significant changes in Acadia. New Brunswick municipalities of various sizes have adopted cultural policies thanks to a coaching and training project partly funded by Canadian Heritage. These cultural policies have made it possible to anchor the arts and culture in several key sectors within municipalities, such as tourism, health, education, and the economy, thereby contributing to the economic, social, and cultural development of our regions. Mr. Guy Chiasson, the mayor of the municipality of Balmoral in New Brunswick, which benefited from this project and adopted a cultural policy, stated the following, and I quote, "The implementation of a cultural policy for and by the people has enabled our municipality to develop in several areas, both economically, socially, and culturally." End of quote. It is obvious, colleagues, that the federal government's support for the municipalities' community partners is a concrete way for it to contribute to the good development and growth of our municipalities. I would be remiss if I did not end this speech without acknowledging the role that Canadian municipalities can play in Canada's cultural diplomacy. In 2019, the Standing Senate Committee on Foreign Affairs and International Trade conducted a major study on this subject. In its report, Cultural Diplomacy at the Forefront of Canadian Foreign Policy, it recommended, and I quote, that the Government of Canada examine opportunities for increased or improved collaboration and coordination with provinces, territories, and municipalities on cultural diplomacy. End of quote. The use of cultural resources in our municipalities across the country can and should be at the heart of the cultural diplomacy initiatives undertaken by the federal government. In this regard, while we often tend to focus on large cities, I would like to reaffirm the importance of the federal government doing everything in its power to support and strengthen the small and medium-sized cities that occupy the entire Canadian territory and that are true engines of cultural, economic, and social development for our country. Colleagues, these are all ways in which the federal government can support our Canadian municipalities. There is much more to be said about the fundamental role that Canadian municipalities play in the development of our country. Federal, provincial, and territorial relations are key to the development of our municipalities. I therefore hope that the various instruments available to these different levels of government take the needs of our municipalities fully into account. In closing, I would like to quote Pericles once again. He said, "There is no happiness without freedom, nor freedom without courage. Let us therefore have the courage to work together to strengthen the relationship between the federal government and our Canadian municipalities so that our fellow citizens can live happily and freely, and that we be able to create, as suggested by Senator Odette, meeting spaces, rebuilding spaces, co-creation spaces, where together we can dream of this wonderful country that we call home."